and two of them said that they were shocked really bad, and part of the same two, they were shocked hard enough where they had to be resuscitated. And so I'm going to be talking about this Atlantean Crystal Orb, and then branch off into ancient civilizations that are just enigmas on this planet, and try to, I guess, discuss whether they're just humans with ancient knowledge or if they're extraterrestrial in nature. And then I'm going to go into crystal power and talk about Marcel Vogel and his work with IBM and inventing things, and then what he was doing with quartz crystal and figuring out how to like use them for healing. And it's kind of like the balance of like, well, it connects the science between crystal healing and then just using that, because like no one really believes that like crystals can like cure you, especially not like the average like normal person. But like he was once IBM's leading scientist, and he figured it out. And he died in 95, but he retired from IBM in like either the late 60s or 70s. And he was so important that IBM gave him $500,000 worth of equipment and told him like, just keep playing, keep experimenting, and like tell us if you figure out something cool. So I'm going to try to take all of that and wrap it into one 2-hour session.
So tell us more about the first part.
The Atlantean Crystal Orb?
Yeah. The Atlantean Crystal Orb?
Yes.
Is it in, where is it?
I guess that I'll have to say that part for last, but it was found off the coast of Bimini in the Bahamas, and it was actually an Arizonan who found it. And he was looking for pirate treasure. Like whenever there's a hurricane, it shifts the sand, and so him and his friends were trying to find sunken galleons. And then there were some storms, and it knocked off a lot of their equipment, like their sonar, their cameras, like their GPS, and they just went down anyway after the storm. And the water was very murky because of the storm. And he, this guy, Ray Brown, found a pyramid under the water, and he tried to find like a door to go inside it. And he actually did. And inside there were 7 chairs in a circle, and inside the circle of chairs was a pillar, like a marble pillar, and then on that there were 2 hands like this, and they were holding a crystal ball inside of their hands. And then from the ceiling there was like a golden or bronze spear and like a ruby on the base of it, and it was just pointing at the orb. And he was a treasure hunter, so he tried to take the spear because he thought that was worth something, and the spear wasn't going to move. And then he tried the hands because they looked metal, but when he tried to take the hands off, the ball inside was loose. And so he took the ball, and that was the only thing in the room that was like that moved, that was loose. So he took that, and he said that inside the room there was no algae, and that there was no coral growth. It was just a clean sunken room. And in several of the stories that I've heard, he said that there was a voice that said, "You got what you came for, now never come back." And it was interesting because like he didn't exactly know where he was, other than like so many hours from like this point, and we could see it's over there, like some islands. But and then no one else saw the pyramid except for Ray Brown, and he was with like 3 or 4 other divers. And then I forget how much time later, but they did try to go back, and it was like the sea prevented them from going back and finding the pyramid. Like in 2 accounts I read, Ray said that the waves just went up like 15 feet, like in Moses. Like it was just like, nope. And he's just waiting. And then when he decided, like, forget it, like I can't, the waves just like went back down into the ocean. And some of his oh, some of his other divers, they had found weird objects like electronic phones or cameras, or no, calculators. So they were just flat with like buttons, and they were like, this is weird. And then they tried to go back without Ray Brown, and they ended up dying. So like his crew was gone, and he didn't know what to do with the orb. Like he was kind of afraid to like share it with the world or anyone, because he didn't want the government taking it from him, which is totally like a real threat, because they have ways of making objects like that disappear. And he did end up giving it to Marcel Vogel to play with, who was the leading crystal wizard at that time. And Marcel Vogel was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And you can actually like watch it like bend physics. Like they had a rod with a stainless steel weight on it, and they have the orb. Oh, I found one for display purposes. It was about this size. I took this from work. But like they tried to like poke the orb, but like it was repelling it, and the weight is just floating in the air, and they're like, that's strange. Like a magnet could do that, but it was stainless steel, so it wouldn't do that to stainless steel. So it was just weird. But like all the research I've done, like if Marcel Vogel says that this crystal is amazing and legit, that's enough for me to know like this is a one of a kind artifact. Oh, and also inside the sphere, you could see pyramids in it, which is mind-boggling. It's like an optical illusion of pyramids inside it. And it stayed in Arizona for most of its life. And when Ray Brown died, he gifted it to a man, and then this man was like, this is way too powerful for me. Like I need to give it away to someone who can handle the energy. And so then he gave it to a guy named Arthur in Cornville, Arizona, which is right near Sedona. And he had it for probably over a decade. I think he got it in 1994, and he got rid of it a few years ago. So he probably had it for like around 3 decades. And he kept it in like a Tupperware of water, which is cool because like it came from the sea, so why not give it water to live in, which is adorable. And I learned from a woman who, like, he shared it with her a lot, and she makes the jewelry in Sedona, that he called the crystal ball Anna, which is unique. It's, I don't know, it's adorable. And then there were some conferences that were really big. There's 999, so like September 9th, 2009, and then 10, 10, 10, 11, 11, and 12, 12, 12, where these, the point of the conference was bringing crystal skulls together, and the 999 was in Tempe. And Arthur and Liz went, and they brought the orb, and all the crystal skulls were there, and like, I don't know, everyone was just fascinated kind of a little more with the crystal ball, because like even just being within its presence, like you just feel like something is different with that one. And then in Florida, it was either, I think there's a 12 12 12 one, I think. In a random post on the internet, someone wrote that it struck a woman, like kind of like lightning, like it just struck her, and she just fell over, and she had to be taken to the hospital. And she had like chronic illness, but whenever she came back out of the hospital, she was cured of that. And people were kind of like, why would the crystal ball hurt someone? Like that's not normal. That's not what it's supposed to do. Like, why would it do that? But I guess that's the only way it could heal that person. So that was kind of cool. And then I heard of another story where like Arthur was only giving like private sessions with the orb, and he gave it to a woman who was like a producer for something. And when she touched it, like she kind of passed out on the ground. She fell over, and she had to be resuscitated. But she said when she came out, like she saw Thoth, which is the Egyptian Atlantean god. But it's weird. She said he was like 20 feet tall. He was just a giant, which is really cool. Like, I'm a skeptic, but I have an open mind, so I want to figure out more of that. And then Arthur said that he was also seeing Thoth. which I'm jealous too, but I'm just like, how and why? Why would they be seeing Thoth with the orb?
Some kind of connection there.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of like Mexican stones that are being found right now, and they have alien carvings on them. And there's a dealer that I know who like sells them, and he told me years ago that he was also seeing Thoth, and some of the stones with aliens on them, they're also pictures of Thoth on them, which, I mean, it's hard for me to like to say if they're real or fake, but I don't know, the images are there. I know he's seen Thoth, but like I'm definitely gonna be messaging him soon and asking him like, so how tall is he? Because if he said he was giant, that would be like a definite connection.
So have you seen some of these stones that are carved like alien? Are they mostly on onyx, like black onyx, or like what is there a certain stone that they carve them on that you've seen?
I've seen black ones. They're usually like, it looks like it's kind of like a sheet rock, like it's black rock that comes in sheets, but it's not onyx. It's like a slate, dark gray. But then I have seen them on like these yellow brown stones, and they call them potatoes because they look like potatoes, but they're in Spanish. So whatever Spanish is for potatoes, that's what they call
Papa, Papa.
Yes. And a few years ago, like I follow like these people on Instagram because like they're finding them or they're creating them. I don't know, but I just follow them because there's a lot of like iconography on them and then pictures that are just out of this world. So like I just study it, absorb it, even if it's real or fake. But then they found out like recently that some of them glow with either a shortwave black light or a high wave black light. And then I bought a few of these stones. And so then like I saw that on Instagram and I'm like, I have to check out my stones. And so I took this black light, the black light that I had, and then I tested like if I have 12 of them, 3 of them would glow. And so that was really cool. And then I have a friend named James Keenan who's trying to like debunk these stones, saying that like there would be nothing bioluminescence that would last for years. Oh, they were carbon dating these stones at the U of A, and they said that they were like around 9,000, 8,000 years old. And he was saying like there's nothing that would continue to glow after so many thousands of years. But last year I went to a colossal cave, and one of the new things that I never seen before is they have this black light, and they were shining it on the walls and the floor of the cave, and they were glowing. And I'm like, that's really cool. And these caves are millions of years old, so like that debunks James Keenan's observation of nothing can glow because these cave formations were glowing. But then they were also, it was the potatoes are like really smooth. And so I'm thinking that like they came out of a cave first, and then I don't know how they were carved, but it's really fine, like horsehair lines.
Karen, you said that you had like several of the stones and like 3 of them had bioluminescence. Do they all appear to be the same type of stone?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no like difference in stones with that. And okay, so I would have to look at the stones to see if, because there are some stones that do have fluorescence to them. As to the caves, the reason that they actually luminesce is because of the different types of algae that grow on them. Some of them actually are bioluminescent.
Mm-hmm. Is that like
so the cave would actually be different
because
it's not the stone itself, it's what's growing on the stone.
Okay,
That's what
interesting.
makes it bio, something living, but otherwise it would have a luminescence, is what you're saying, right, Aaron?
Right, yeah.
There are all kinds of stones that are bioluminescent for millennia. Don't believe I'm telling you. There are magnesium is bioluminescent. If you have a stone full of magnesium, it'll bioluminesce. If you go in Lake Michigan, there's stones that wash up that have certain minerals in it that are also bioluminescent. And by the way, they would be worn round and smooth.
Is that the UFO lights?
I guess that's what they call it. I don't remember what the name is right offhand, but there's hundreds of bioluminescent.
Right.
Mhm.
Or they're probably
Yeah.
luminescent. It's only if they have like algae or something that would make them bioluminescent, but yeah. So,
Yeah, and two, even if you had stones that look the same, if there's a particular chemical in it that is actually making it luminescent, it would depend upon how close to the surface it is as to whether or not that particular specimen is luminescence versus the next one. If it's like, clear in the interior, you're not going to really get as much as if it's on the surface. So even if they look the same, I mean, you would really have to do a lot of research on the components of the actual stone to see if there's something with that.
This is, I don't know if you can see, this is one of them I have.
Oh,
that's
cool.
of it. Wow, yeah. Wow. Are they all that shape?
Well, that's really intricate. That's a lot more detailed in the diagram than I thought that they would have on there.
This is another one that I have. I found these on eBay years ago.
Hmm.
It's kind of,
You actually have the stone itself?
yes,
Cool.
at my parents' house, not here. But yeah, I don't know if those are the ones that are glowing, but they look exactly that same color.
Well, so I'll just make a little comment here. In 1982, when I went to my first West Coast dowsing conference, they had all vendors, and Marcel Vogel was there himself.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah,
So jealous.
but I had no idea. I didn't really know that much about him or anything. But now it's like, oh, I met him.
I've got a, this is an actual Vogel 8-point
That's
cut.
awesome.
Oh,
The
okay.
crystals
Yeah.
are six-point cut. This is 8-point
Mhm.
cut, 8-sided, and it's an actual Vogel crystal. It used to have a serial number on the side, but it wore off. But I got this in the 90s, and it's very powerful. You can feel the energy on your hand from about 3 inches away, just coming out.
Awesome.
Great healing crystal.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those too.
So, Karen, do you want to tell us a little bit about the ancient civilizations and alien connections? I know a lot of people think that the Earth was maybe colonized by Martians or somewhere else. Have you what line of thought have you followed? That?
I guess Atlantis, because the people who, like Arthur, who had the orb for 30 years, he kept referencing Atlantis, like saying it was from Atlantis, but it's almost like, how would he know that? Because like he wasn't there when it was found, and like just because you found it in the Atlantic Ocean, like doesn't mean it's Atlantis. And then like there's a YouTuber named Bright, well, his name is Jimmy Corsetti, but his YouTube name is Bright Insight, and he swears up and down that Atlantis is their Eye of the Sahara, which is also known as the Rechat structure, which is on the upper left coast of Africa, and it's an eroded dome where like just like the earth and like a volcano, and it just kind of like made rings as it like was forming, and then whenever the water levels were pristine, like the water like just filled the rings, and so like you had rings of land and then the water and then everything, and then like if that is actually Atlantis, then what is west of it over in the Atlantic Ocean?
Karen,
Yes.
can I just pop in real quick? One reason why they might have thought that was Atlantis. I don't know if you're familiar with Edgar Cayce or not, but Edgar Cayce was a sleeping prophet, and he predicted a certain date, and I forget the date, but he said in this certain date they would find proof that Atlantis, find evidence of Atlantis near Bimini.
Yes.
And so on that specific year that he predicted, they found these blocks, square blocks, the roads, the Bimini Road, right? So when they found it, if he found a pyramid near Bimini, he would naturally think that that was Atlantis. I would.
Mhm. I do mention that the years that Edgar Casey mentioned was 1968 and 1969, which is when the Bimini Road was discovered, and then they tested those rocks to see like what they were, and they were a type of limestone, and they said that they were only 2,000 years old, which is not quite old enough to be Atlantis, but Ray Brown found the crystal in that year also. So I'm wondering if Edgar Casey wasn't looking at what Ray Brown was doing and not the Bimini Road.
There's a little bit more to that. They have found Aztecan pyramids down there in the bay, and it's off of the Bimini Road. So yes, there are pyramids there in the Atlantic. However, they're not what they're thinking. So they're not. They're shaped like the Aztec or the Mayan.
Mm-hmm.
They are there. They're present. They're sunk. They found them, without a doubt.
Which, like, who did? Like, I would like to see an article. Like today, I was looking for any article.
This is I collect stuff mentally, and this is something I grab.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, no, I watched video on it, and yes, they have found actual pyramids down there. They are not Egyptian; they're built more Mayan Aztec, but they're there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that might have also been what he was referring to. It was later on. I don't know. It was almost 2000 or something. There was treasure hunters down there, and they found it. So.
Mm-hmm. Ray Brown said the pyramid he saw had, like the capstone was blue, so it's probably like lapis as wool. I don't know what civilization was making blue capstones.
Have any of the rest of you had any kind of inklings about ancient civilizations, or just like a sense about where we came from?
Well, there's a channeled entity I've been with for nearly 40 years. It goes by the name of Samuel. And according to Samuel, he says that the only last remaining evidence of Atlantis would be the Isle of Arran off the coast of Scotland. And he said parts of the Canary Islands are the only last remnants of Atlantis. But he said all the rest of it basically, first it imploded and then it exploded. And there's no other evidence left of it in the world anywhere, according to him. So you get different stories.
But then beyond that, then another thing about the ancient civilizations is stories about the giants that were among us. That even in the Bible, it talks about the giants who mated with the daughters of Eve and that sort of thing. So who were these giants and where do they come from?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any speculation or?
My belief, I think giants actually existed. They were pretty prevalent around the Mediterranean, but there's also evidence that we had them here in North America as well.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So where did they come from? Were they different civilization, or what do you think?
I think they were a separate race of beings.
So, well, so is that kind of encapsulate about everything you're going to talk about, Karen?
Yeah, and then I kind of go into like the history of like the crystal ball and like where did they like come from? Like whenever you see pictures of wizards, like they have a crystal ball, and gypsies and witches, and like where did they come and why do they have those? And are the beings the source of the power, or is the crystal ball their source of their power? And then I have like a 7-minute video of she's by Robert Shrewsbury. He was my email pen pal for a few years, but he was big. He lived in Utah, and he was big into mineralogy and alchemy. And there's a cave in Utah called Brewer's Cave, and Mr. John Brewer, when he went inside, he found these like, it's kind of like a paint can, but with like a bowl depression on top of it, and on top of some of those were crystal balls, and they were lit up Like that was like the energy sources. They were just lit up.
Mhm.
And Robert experimented a lot with caves like that, stuff he's heard. He's read like all the Bibles, and he thinks like the paint cans were actually radioactive. And he found someone in the 70s. He had like a pea-sized piece of plutonium, and then he had a beryl crystal. And when you push them together, it made the crystal light up as bright as the sun. And he went back to like King Solomon, his mines, and he was saying how like that's probably why there's no torch marks on the ceiling and the walls, is because they had a different type of power. And then he told a story about how in South America, this construction workers were making a bridge or something. No, probably a tunnel. And they breached a wall, and like all this light was just piercing through the wall. And when they looked through this hole, they found balls that were just lit up, and a lot of like weird artifacts inside them. And then this one person took a few, but then like they had to call it in, and then like the government came, and then they just filled the whole thing with cement and said you didn't see anything.
Government cover up.
Yes, so
Yep.
like I feel like there has to be something with crystal balls and free energy.
And
Well,
in addition to that, have you ever heard of something called scrying?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a lot of times, you know, the psychic or whatever will, if they have a clear enough crystal ball and they're able to scry, then they may see something in the crystal ball too. I think that's why you see them so often with, you know, the fortune teller with the crystal ball on the table and so forth.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Chris?
I was just going to say there's a lot more about energy Karen doesn't know. Huge
Cool.
amount you don't know. I've been studying true physics for, well, since I was a kid.
Mhm.
So, yeah, when you take two light minerals, you take uranium and beryllium and put them together. There is uranium in beryllium. The beryllium is actually nuclear.
Uh-huh.
Take two fusionable materials and put them together, you're going to get a reaction.
Mhm.
So whether it's a profound reaction or not, it's up to you. But no, there's huge. It's so big, it's so vast, the amount of information that you need. That, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what you know.
I've been studying for 60 years, so.
So, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't Tesla. He was able to draw electricity up from the ground.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. But the thing is there's free energy everywhere. And back, I have one quick little thing I want to jump in there on. The U.S. military, wherever you see a U.S. military presence, there is or was a PowerPoint or a powerful civilization there at one point in time. If you notice out over the Bimini Road, that's a U.S. Navy port, and there's parts of it you're not allowed to go in. Well, there's a reason for that. There's also islands out in the Pacific you're not allowed to go on because there's a reason for that. Okay. They have unwound some of the physics of the power in the planet. Okay. There's a lot of things they know that they're not going to let out. And when an ordinary person like you and I manage to get a clue, you're going to be the first one they turn away. So, that I wanted to help you with that. So, and what else were we talking about?
Well, ancient civilizations and
my point was that since Tesla was able to pull electricity up from the ground, I think that the ancients, including the ancient Egyptians, they've shown these pictures of light bulbs, that on the walls that they think the Egyptians had a power source, so they didn't have to use torches.
Mhm.
And so I think that they were using sort of Tesla's discovery, how they were able to just take the energy up from the ground into the pyramids and light them up, and they could work in there without any torches or fire or anything. That's just
Tesla only had a glimmer of what the truth is, and we're starting in this one place where I've been studying for a while. There are three fields. There's the field of the earth, in the earth, there's a field in the middle, and then there's a field up in the air, the ionosphere. Between those three fields, you can gather energy, which is what Tesla was successfully doing at his level. There are levels above that that are just beyond conception. That's the area I wanted to go, but you know, I'm only an average person. So but you're right. That Tesla was harvesting electricity. He was able to, if you simply, he was building a device. If you simply took an 8-foot rod, put it in the ground and wired up the house and put a receiver on the roof, you could pull the energy right from the air. That was what his goal was. That's, and greed, you know, it's the same human arrogance, greed, human, whatever you want to call it, you know, that's it.
No TEP. So is the Bimini Road, is that somehow connected with the Bermuda Triangle?
Yeah.
It's off of the Bermuda. The Bimini Road heads out from Florida. The Bermuda Triangle is off to the left of Florida.
Okay.
It's kind of, it's not in it, but it is sort of like associated. The pyramids are off to the right of the Bimini. It's towards Mexico.
Okay. Well, my brother was in the Air Force and he was stationed in Bermuda and his job was radar. And I asked him if he ever saw anything, any anomalies, and he said no. Of course, probably couldn't tell me even if he did.
Oh, well, he was taught to only look for a certain type of anomaly, which was explainable at his level, and that was it. But there are levels above they won't let him get at.
Yeah,
so,
sure. So Karen, I'm just curious about the investigations with MUFON. Are investigators find provable evidence about anything, any extraterrestrial or anything? I mean, is there any documentation? I mean, the government seems to be experimenting and exploring a lot of this, and now they're supposedly going to be releasing it. But with MUFON, have the investigators found anything?
I know there's every state has like a star team, and I know Arizona has a star team, but I heard that like they haven't gone out, like they haven't been needed.
What does that mean?
Like there haven't been any like I guess there's tiers to like UFO sightings. Like there's one which is like I saw a light in the sky, and then there's two. I should know all these. 3 is like this craft came down in front of me and ETs came out and like they were in my space. And like if that happens, then they would definitely like send a team out to go, I guess, test the ground for radiation and I guess do a bunch of tests to see like if what they said actually could have happened or if this person was just pulling a hoax or stuff like that. And like I would say like if I've done like 12 cases, I think I only had 2 that I could like definitely say like was not a plane. It's not a plane or a bird or a planet or like anything known. Like it was definitely like an unknown craft.
So for those who don't know, they've people in this realm talk about close encounters of the first, second, third, fourth. You know, there was the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but you're aware of Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. But would you mind just kind of going through those levels, kind of like what you're saying, but start with number 1?
I think level 1 is if you see something, and then level 2 is if you see evidence of a craft, like a crop circle. And 3 is if you like you've been abducted or something and like they are on the ground with you. And 4 is if they take you and put you on a ship and you're like you know you're on a ship and you can see Earth and you're not on Earth anymore. And then 5 is when you initiate the conversation. And then I think 6 is like getting into like the hybrid program where like they took you for your eggs or sperm.
Mm-hmm. So you in your biography, well, you'll be able to, everyone will be able to see if you haven't already heard the link to that. You talked about being with a CE or a Close Encounter 5 group.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you been involved in actually meeting with these other people that are looking for contact?
Yeah, like I've been to a few in Sedona, but then when I lived in Phoenix, like I led my own CE5 group and I did one in a month for maybe like a year and a half. And like our best nights were, it's not something we saw, but it was something we all felt. Like there was a night where like we finished and like we were going around the group asking what you thought. And then some woman said that she felt a hug from behind. And then a bunch of other people were like, I felt that too. And then for some reason, like my third eye felt hot. And I'm just like, why is my forehead hot? Like, that's weird. I can't explain that. But like, definitely like feelings versus what we've seen. And then like, I have a night vision goggles. So like, I would see things and then I point them out with my green laser pointers. And then I would pass the goggles around so like everyone else can see things.
So, does anybody else have any questions for Karen?
About CE, I was curious, you're talking about CE5. What do you know of Stephen Greer?
I went to one of his events in Scottsdale. It was interesting. He definitely like he's almost not approachable because he has bodyguards.
Well, yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's out threatening, you know, he's taking up the mantle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd imagine he has bodyguards.
Yeah. But like I guess what he said was his talks were interesting. If I was him, the only thing I would do differently is like a lot of people came from the East Coast to see his talk, and then from like at 10 o'clock for like a half hour he wanted to do a meditation, and all of these people were falling asleep in the audience, and like this should be like first because like people need to drive home and they need to be like alert. You can't give them all a nap and then tell them to go jump in their cars.
Speaking of different levels, they just weren't ready.
Yeah, the time zone difference. But everyone there was really cool person. Like I met the most amazing people, and like I went by myself, and I usually go to events by myself, but like I'm always worried like oh my god, all these people and I don't know any of them, but they were all really cool. Like I had known them for years.
Yeah, that shock factor can be good sometimes, huh?
Well, that shared interest too. Jennifer, is there anything that you're wondering about? You can unmute and ask about it if you're still there. Jennifer?
I actually just sent you guys a message that said goodbye.
Oh, okay, I didn't see
I
that.
gotta go. I've got another
Okay.
meeting.
Well, I'm
All
glad
right.
you joined. Bye-bye.
It was a good talk. Thank you, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
So, anybody else? Rita, apparently, Lisa said you have some interest in this topic of UFOs and so forth. Have you had any experiences, or is there anything that you've been wondering about?
Me personally?
Rita?
Oh, Rita.
She's asking you. You're asking me?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Of experiences that I've had
Yeah.
with outer space?
Yeah, and just you have Lisa said you have an interest in this, so I just wondered if you have ever had any sense of connection or abduction or anything of that sort.
Yes, I did. I was in bed one night and I was awake, and I thought my daughter was coming through the door, but it wasn't. It was a tall man that I could see his chin. Only sometimes when he ducked his head, he was that tall, all in white. And I was looking at him, and he shrunk down and became almost like a large as a medium dog with black rings around his eyes. And the dog turned and looked at me and studied me. And then all of a sudden, the fog came and they disappeared in through and up to the closet. And I was slapping my face and saying, I'm awake, I'm awake, I'm awake.
Oh.
And I saw this, and I talked to Lisa, my friend here, and asked her to explain this to me. And I don't know why. And she said maybe it was my sister from above. My sister's deceased and looking after me. I don't know, but that's one of the experiences that I've had. Anyway, And I'm thinking I'm very happy to be alive, because there were so many times when I was so near death and I thought I was going to die, but I never did. And I'm still going on, and I'm 96 years old.
Good for you. Now, when you had that experience, did you feel fear or comfort, or what kind of emotions did you have when that was happening in that experience?
I thought this was a mistake. Something else is going on. They're looking for somebody else besides me, but they were there in the room and they did what they had to do, and then they disappeared. And I've been reading the Bible and more often than not, and trying to figure out. And I realized that years in centuries ago, there were men who were around the kings and the queens that talked to them. They were all in white, and they were magical. I guess that's what it's
like
called.
High priest or something?
Pardon?
High priest, for example?
Yes. And I figured this young man that was so tall was one of them, and maybe they made a mistake. But no, the way they looked at me, the way the dog turned and looked at me was sending messages, but I couldn't. I was so aware of what was happening for real. I couldn't pick him up. I couldn't get the messages. But that was that for sure. That happened to me. That happened.
All right.
And I know we don't have a lot of time right now, but I just have to tell you, like, Rita has had some really fascinating experiences in her life.
Uh-huh.
She tells me that she's always believed that,
She's always what?
she has always believed that we're not alone.
Oh,
No, always. I knew from the beginning when I was young. I when people would say, "Oh, you're crazy," but I never stopped believing that we were not alone. Always, I knew there was something else going on, and I don't know why.
well, remember on Saturday at Beyond Red at 3:00, anybody who wants to come, and Rita will be there also. So that'll be just a good time to share anything. So does anybody have any other questions for Karen? Or Karen, do you have any last words you'd like to say?
I guess if anyone has information that they think would be helpful for me to mention in my presentation, they could totally email me.
Okay. And up here on the screen, are y'all seeing her information there? Yeah, and I can send it to you if anybody doesn't have it. I mean, several of us know Karen from being leaders of the Tucson Paranormal Society. And then Lisa and Rita, and now you can join us every Wednesday from wherever you are. You don't have to be in Tucson. Now on Wednesday Discoveries. Okay, so thank you, everybody. I forgot to start the recording right away, but it is being recorded, and we will be able to get that in addition to the recording for Lisa's talk last week. We just had we found out that recording is so large, we have to deal with it separately than just sending it in the email. So Cassie and I will come up with a way to make that available to everybody. So next week, David is our guest. The week after that, Aaron is our guest, and then we'll have Chris after that. We've got so much information, so many experts here on so many different topics. So that's what this is all about, is Wednesday Discoveries. Okay, so have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you for the
Karen, appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You doing okay, Karen, with that? Did you feel good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got 10 days.
Yeah, all right. You'll do it. You'll do fine.
Cool.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.